guys, welcome back to my channel. As you know, every week we talk about faith, family, and mental health, and this week we're going to be talking about mental health in a very specific way. We're going to be talking about integrative nutrition with a good friend of mine, Maria. So if you want to just go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit and your background and what integrative nutrition has to do with who you are.
Sure. Hi guys, my name is Maria, and Melissa and I went to grad school together where we studied marriage and family therapy. And as I was doing my therapies, I thought, okay, there's something else that I have to incorporate with this because I really enjoy nutrition and talking about food. So in addition to being a marriage and family therapist, I'm also an integrative nutrition health coach. And basically that just means that you talk about food integratively, speaking about mental health, our relationships, and everything that is important about food but isn't actually food.
How does marriage and family therapy, like mental health, things like that, our relationships, have anything to do with the food that we eat and our physical health?
Yeah, great question. So you said it perfectly, relationships. What relationship do we have with our food? I know in marriage and family therapy we're talking about relationships that we have with our spouses, with our family members, but what relationship do we have with our food? And so at Integrative Nutrition School, we talk about primary food and secondary food. So primary food is anything that nourishes us on a deeper level. Things like our relationships, our friendships, our career, or anything that really just, gets to the core of us. Mm-hmm. And then secondary food is anything that we put on our plate. So literally the food that we're eating.
So does that mean that if we're not feeding ourselves with those deeper things, then we're gonna have a hard time feeding ourselves with what's on our plate?
Exactly. Right. So if we are unbalanced in any of those areas that I just talked about, then the things that you're going to be putting on your plate aren't really representative of the things that you would want to be eating or that you would usually be eating because you're off balance. So take into consideration anytime you've been through a bad breakup. Can you think back to that? I know that you're married happily now, but think back to those times when things weren't going so well. And I just remember eating a lot of ice cream and eating a lot of, I don't want to call it junk food, but a lot of food that kind of comforts us and takes us to this place where we have to be balanced in a way, and we do that through food. So food isn't just a physical thing where you feed yourself, there's an emotional component there as well.
And I go the opposite way. If I'm stressed, I don't eat because I lose my appetite. So I remember going through that with a breakup in high school and losing a bunch of weight, and my family noticing that I looked really unhealthy because I was overly stressed.
Exactly. So that's exactly what happens. So one of the things that integrative nutrition talks about is that you need to have a balance between these two things. You can't just be focusing on your food because then you're not taking care of all these other really important things. And then you can't just be taking care of all these really important things without taking a look at your nutrition. So it's just putting these two components together. So the mental health, which is what we were taught in grad school, and then the nutrition concept, putting it together and kind of getting a bigger holistic approach. I can share a little personal story about that because there was a time when I became really restrictive and really obsessive with my food. And so I would count my calories and I would look at the ingredients and I would make sure that everything that I was eating was healthy. And I got so preoccupied with that I started to make myself sick. So I was getting stomach aches and I was getting really gassy all the time. But it made no sense whatsoever because if I'm eating all this healthy food, why am I getting sick to my stomach? I'm following all the instructions, I'm following all what the health websites are telling me, and it just made no sense. And as soon as I started to relax, be more flexible with my food, it all went away. So you can't just be focused on the food, you can't just be focused on that physical aspect. There's got to be that mental, and rigidness is not good for anybody.
Yeah, and usually I see a lot of times with clients rigidness coming out if you have certain tendencies or were brought up in a very rigid way and you find a way to not become rigid about that specific thing, rigidness comes out in another way usually. So if we are being less on top of our relationships, it might be then more focused on food. So you're saying we have to find a good balance across both.
Definitely. And it's kind of digging into why are you being so rigid with your food? And that goes back to where you've raised in a very strict household where everything was supposed to be a certain way and there was control, and then you need to feel that sense of control in other areas of your life, such as your work or such as your food.
When you're working with clients, how much of your work is actually about what's on their plate versus what is going on in their lives?
This is the funniest part, and I love it because you think you're gonna come and talk to me about the food that's on your plate. 90% of the time, people want to talk about their relationships or what's going on in their lives. And it all comes down to that sense of self-esteem and self-worth.
Because people typically know what they should be eating or what would be good for them, but there's still something in the way. So what are like the barriers that they have?
That's perfect. That's exactly it. Everybody knows.
Right.
You really don't have to tell anybody, eat your greens and, decrease the amount of crazy sugars that we eat that sometimes we don't even know what we're eating. So everybody knows. So what's going on? Well, a lot of it has to do with motivation. So feeling like, I can do this, or I deserve to do this. I am worthy of taking care of my health. And then also another aspect of it is there's so many different theories regarding nutrition. Eat the fat. Don't eat the fat. Eat the carbs. Don't eat the carbs.
Yeah.
There's so much out there.
Some are like all protein, no carbs. Some are all carbs, no sugar. I don't know.
Right. There's always some sort of restriction, and people just feel like, okay, well, what do I even do? Where do I even get started? What's the latest craze? The keto diet or the paleo, and how do I get on board with that? And what happens is that a lot of these diets aren't sustainable. So you're talking about doing a 30-day, a 60-day kind of challenge and getting on board with that, and that's great, but it's not sustainable. And that's why studies have shown that 95% of people, 95% of people who go on diets don't end up being successful in the long run.
So then what is the right type of diet for them?
Their diets. I know.
Yeah, there are so many different diets, and I always hear of them and I'm like, that sounds good. Like, some of them sound good. I've tried certain ones. I've liked certain ones. But yeah, it's for a short period of time. I remember doing the Whole30.
I remember when you were doing that.
I did the Whole30.
Yeah, what was that like?
So I did the Whole30 and I really liked it. I felt good. I didn't lose any weight, but I wasn't really doing it to lose weight.
Yeah.
I felt healthy, but then it was so restrictive that as soon as it ended, I ate a bowl of pasta because that's what was offered to me, and I wanted to die. Like, my stomach hurt so bad, and I think that my body was cleansed of all those things, so eating it again, my body was like, what the heck are you eating?
What's going on?
But then, it was nothing sustainable. It was just like, okay, I accomplished that. It was just something to accomplish for 30 days.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's what happens. So you have pre-binges. So I'm gonna go on a diet. I'm gonna eat all the things.
Eat all the food in the house
that I'm not supposed to eat for the next 30 days. And then finally, yes, I'm done counting down the days to being done with this diet. And then you go back to eating the exact same way that you were doing before. So what do we do about it? Basically, it's just general ideas, and it's not about restriction, it's about adding. So add more vegetables, essentially. Don't focus on, I'm gonna cut all this out, but crowd it out. So if you're eating more vegetables, what's gonna happen naturally? You're gonna start eating a lot less of those things that aren't considered healthy. I don't like labeling food, but you gotta incorporate more of the things that are good for your well-being, and slowly all those other things that aren't as helpful, they may have emotional benefits like the ice cream, but they start to crowd themselves out.
Yeah, that mindset is so good, because that's such a different mentality of thinking like, let me just add these things in, and that in itself is going to change the way that you're eating, not just like, let me just cut out all these things.
Yeah. The other thing is, you shouldn't feel guilty, if you decide to have a piece of chocolate. There's no reason to feel food guilt because you've been bad, or because you fell off the wagon, the nutrition wagon that doesn't exist. And it's just, it makes up a lot of trouble with that rigidity that you were talking about. This is something that takes time. This is why the programs that I work with my clients are 6 months, and it's not because you can't do it in 30 or you can't do it in 20, whatever it may be. It's that you need time. to figure out what the best way to eat for you is. And it doesn't just come from a cookie cutter version that works for everybody, because we're so different. So why would you expect one specific diet to work for you? It takes, those 6 months to kind of understand, okay, what is going on in my career and how is that affecting what I eat, or the lack of satisfaction that I have when it comes to my workouts, or how does it all make sense going back to my childhood, because this is how I was raised and we never had any healthy food around the house, and my self-esteem, and how does that play into my feelings of worthiness, and then do I even deserve to eat healthy foods? There's so much that goes into it, and those 6 months are perfect for figuring all these things out, rather than just focusing on the food, which is what a lot of diets these days do. Just do it. Just do the 30 days and you're great. You lose the weight. Here's the before and after picture. Everybody's done it. Why can't you? And the other thing is that people who fall into diets become these, yo-yo dieters, consecutively dieting. It makes it more likely for your body to put on weight, which is really interesting, because you think, okay, so you've lost this weight, and then your body becomes really smart and says, okay, you've put me in this whole food deprivation mode. I'm gonna store some of this fat in case this ever happens again, because I don't trust you. Our bodies are so much smarter than we think. And so one of the quotes that I really like is, if you ever want to gain weight, go on a diet. Yes.
Which is so not what you think about.
Right,
if I want to go on a diet, I probably want to lose weight.
Right, but it's so counterintuitive. Everything that we know about diets is wrong.
Okay, so we're not dieting anymore.
We're not
dieting anymore.
We're not dieting, guys. We're not.
Okay, so for someone who is generally healthy, like if they feel like they have a healthy mental health and healthy physical health, should they care about this? Like, how does this play a role for them, this intuitive nutrition?
Yep, comparison. So even if you are eating healthy again, and you are exercising and you're taking care of yourself, what happens if your body doesn't compare to the images or the advertisements that we see everywhere on our media, right? So again, you fall into that trap of saying, well, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, but I don't look like this. So we have to talk about how the images that are portrayed all over media aren't realistic, and that there's lots of healthy bodies at different sizes, and that there's no one that's better than the other. It's just different.
So just like the more we become aware of what's going on in our lives, with our relationships with our food, then we can start to become more healthy overall.
Yes. That's it.
If this strikes a chord with someone, and there's somebody that is watching this video that they want to learn more, or they want to reach out to you, where can they, is there a website they can find more information?
Yes. So my name is Maria, but my middle name is Grace, and so my whole company and brand name is Holistically Grace, and definitely goes into account with the holistic way of viewing health and wellness. So that's the mental component, the chemical component that we just talked about, the nutrition, and everything that goes into it. So holisticallygrace.com. Also, my Instagram is holisticallygrace.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll put all of those links in the description box below, so you can reach out to Maria if you're interested, or just read more about all of this online. We hope that this video makes you just start thinking about your health and wellness overall, and the relationships that you have, which is your primary foods.
Yes, primary foods or relationships.
Yeah, so all of your primary foods that are in your life and what is feeding you. So it could be faith, it could be friendships, family members, whatever you're doing for self-care, all of those things that are feeding you, those are your primary foods. And then your secondary foods, what's on your plate. I hope this video just gave you a little bit of food for thought. That's another type of food. Food for thought, something to think about, something to just start asking yourself questions about how healthy are these areas of my life. And then if you feel like it's something that you do need to work on or pay a little bit more attention to, then you can reach out to Maria, do some research.
I'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah. So that is awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yay.
Bye.